Hey, welcome to the Backyard Professor Chess videos. Alright, hey, I want to read something real quick. This is in Carsten Muller's book on Bobby Fischer, his tournament games. We're still in 1956 when Bobby was 13. And in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, it was in July, the week of the 17th to the 28th in 1956. 10 days after winning the U.S. Junior in Philadelphia, Fischer went to Oklahoma City to cross swords with the big boys. 101 players competed in the 57th U.S. Open, and when the smoke had cleared, the 13-year-old had finished tied for places 4th through 8th. Fischer is getting strong. And this is one of his games against Donovan. He plays the King's Indian defense in this contest. A terrific game. So let's take a look and see how Fischer handled the big boys. Right? I don't know a whole lot about Donovan, if anything at all, other than he was Fischer's opponent. Wow, that was intelligent, wasn't it? Woohoo! We're having fun yet now. Okay, and then knight f3 coming on, and Fischer castles, which is what you do in the King's Indian defense, of course. Bishop e2, it's a typical opening at this point. Knight b to d7, and then white castles. And Fischer bumps that e5 every time. h3 this time his opponent plays. And Fischer puts the c6. So he is going to try to keep a strong pawn center, it appears to me. Bishop e3, strong development from both of them. Queen e7. They're fighting hard. Queen c2. So now the rooks are connected. All Fischer has to do is pull out his bad bishop here, and his rooks will be connected. And he goes to a6. He should have went a5. a6 is a little bit timid. White pushed to the a4. And then rook e8, and that wasn't protocol, but I mean he is pushing, he is trying to develop the rook. And now d takes e5. So the fight for the center pawns, and d takes e5. They've opened up the d file. White pushes to a5, and then Fischer goes knight h5. He's going to try some king side shenanigans. Tactics. Yes, tactics. That was it. Rook f to d1, grabbing the open file, hitting a target. It is supported, of course, but he's still hitting the target. Fischer puts the knight on a terrific outpost on f4. So he is announcing, I want to do something on the king side here, right? Bishop simply bumps to f1. He was threatening the bishop, of course, and now knight goes to f8, so it appears Fischer wants to put both of his knights onto the king side and attack. c5. He's still advancing, getting extra space. Knight 8 to e6, good support for the knight on the outpost. Knight comes to a4. They seem to be pretty active with their knights in this one. And now knight to g5. Bobby's really bringing his knights up. This particular knight sacrifice that we're about to see doesn't quite work. Close, but no cigar. So the knight does take the knight. What we're doing is eliminating pieces on the king side. Queen takes the knight, and now this knight sacrifice didn't quite work. He tried hard, and it's because white correctly played king to h2. That was the right move, and that thwarted the knight sacrifice. Fischer was unaware of that, and he played bishop to e6. The text says, unfortunately, Muller's comment is, the queen needed to come back down. That is what Fischer should have done. Instead, he kept her up. And G3 comes up, now, and now the knight sacrifice. Bishop H6. Fischer is trying to get some combinations going. It didn't quite work out the way he was hoping. The knight is taken, of course, and E takes F4. And now we'll see why it didn't work, because bishop just goes to C1. And queen comes to H4. He's trying to get a kingside attack going. Rook comes to A3. It doesn't faze white at all. Fischer does argue for the open file. You'll notice they have fought somewhat for the center. Fischer's piece is strong in the center, but the pawn here and the pawn here, that's not exactly center, and then the rooks. So the center and the rooks, and it is a fight, and no kidding, it's so important that white brings his rook over, and he says, no, I want this file. And Bobby says, well, I'm not going to let you have that file with both rooks, that's for sure. You might end up with the file for the moment, but not with both rooks. That's too much. So he does exchange. So it makes sense that you want to at least exchange one pair of rooks if there is such an obvious central strong open file like that. White has it at this point. And Fischer bumps his bishop back down. He's going to go over, hit that pawn, and white bumps the pawn. And now Fischer pushes that F5. In his King's Indian, at least in his early career, we've noticed this move several times. This is not advised in our day. But he constantly pushed that F5. He really did. Almost every King's Indian defense. It seems like his early career, at least the ones we have in the tournament record, Bobby had a lot of black, a lot of times when he was playing the black pieces. So this was a characteristic signature of his, at least early on in his famous youth. Rook comes to F3. The doubled up pawns, he's going to blockade them so they can't charge, but it sure gives him a sweet outpost toward the king. It certainly is guarded, however, actually twice. So it's not an easy position to get to the king. F takes E4 looks like a good way to get rid of that nuisance of a rook, but the queen comes in and takes the center pawn, commanding the center more or less. That's a pretty interesting setup as far as that goes. Bishop comes back down to F7, a discovered attack on the queen on the open file, kind of clever. The queen's not in danger, but C2 wasn't the right place to put her either. It was just a question mark. There was no comment in the text that I remember. There probably was, and I can't remember. Oh, yes, I can too, because it was a long variation. I can't remember. It had something to do with the bishops. What white should have done is prevented this move. Rook E1. Now the invasion of the rook. Open file, using the file, getting to the opponent's side. And now chaos and mayhem may prevail if he's not real careful here. So, and then bishop C4, and that wasn't the way to do it at all. But that is the way he did it. Queen came to G5. He's trying like crazy to get to the king, yes. Bishop takes F7 check. Now here was a nifty variation. The king went to F8. Can you see why? There's a very important reason for it. If Bobby would have taken the bishop, then the rook would have taken the pawn. And it's covered by the bishop. And if the bishop would have came out, then Bobby would have lost his queen. Check, and the bishop would take the queen. So, yeah, he at least calculated that correctly so that he knew, no, I cannot take that bishop. At this point in time, no, not happening. So the bishop is safe, and Bobby came to f8 for the moment. For the moment. And now rook comes to g3. He saw that Bobby had access to his king way too strongly. The rook coming over, there was nothing else he could do at this point. His own rook was in the way of him pushing the pawn to open up the queen to help stop the attack going on. But Bobby's got a real strong angle here and here. There's a square he wants to get to with the rook so that his queen can come in and checkmate, yeah? So there's nothing else really Donovan can do to prevent that except sacrifice the rook, which he did. And then the pawn comes to here, and queen takes c1, a nifty little tactic. When we're studying tactics on lichess, the one pattern I've noticed, I still have yet to get real good at seeing it every time, but rather than just exchanging the queens or a pair of rooks or whatever, first attack a piece, and he gets a bishop and a queen for a queen. So here, Fischer evens out the material because he sacrificed his knight quite a bit earlier. Now the material, at least as far as the pieces go, a rook, I said even, that's not true. He's got a rook and a bishop, and white has a knight and a bishop, so white is behind. White is lower. And with the rook and a fairly open field, of course then we are approaching the endgame, and it's usually open at the endgames, Fischer has a chance here. And he's in the US Open, which is kind of cool. Bishop does come to e6. Rook goes back over to e1, hitting the bishop, target. Bishop to c8. I've got to quit saying that. I had one of you guys playing me earlier this week, and man, you made targets of my whole setup, and I finally had to resign because I was down so much. Good job. Targets, they work, I'm telling you. They really do work. Bishop c8, now rook e2, check, and king to h1, and now rook to e7. King comes to g2. He wants to be near his pawns. It is the endgame. The pawn, neither one has a majority. So they're even pawns-wise, but white is down because of the pieces. Two minor pieces with a major piece and a minor piece. Fischer ought to have this one. King came to e8, and then he pushed h4, and then king went to d8, target. The king can be a fighting piece. Bishop to g4, and now rook to e3. And it was at this point that Bobby won. White resigned. Now I got looking at this and I said, well, yeah, he is down in material. He's got a knight to watch that side, but that rook is going to make Bobby end up winning. So it was at this point that White gave up the ghost. He said, that's good. I can't win because I really am down because of the rook. I mean, the very next move, I mean, what can White do that's going to be truly significant? Perhaps attack the rook, but the problem is the rook now starts taking pawns. And that's deadly in an endgame because now he's got the pawn majority with a rook against a knight and a bishop. He's got a rook and a bishop. So really, truly, Bobby won this game in the US Open. It's really cool that he placed in 4th to 8th place. That in 101 competitors. And these weren't just juniors. This was the U.S. Open. So Bobby is getting stronger. He is able to put more together, and we're seeing that, which is really cool, because hopefully that's the idea with us going through his game. So there's your video. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be good, do well, stay happy. You do know that happy is not based upon what kind of weather is occurring or on who says what to you or what happens to you. You do realize that, right? Happy is an attitude that begins with you in your head. You decide, today I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to let others know I'm happy. Not by saying it, showing it. Smiling, being much more courteous, opening doors for the ladies at the gas station when you fill your car, or whatever it is you do, showing kindness and being happy. I'm telling you, it reflects around. It really does. It's more fun to have friends and make friends than have enemies and make enemies. So anyway, there's your thought for the day. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next Backyard Professor Chess video.